Welcome to Energy Matters to You, August 16, 2017 edition. The Energy Matters to You podcast is a communication platform that features technologies and thought leaders working to advance energy efficiency. The Energy Matters to You podcast seeks to connect buyers with sellers so that practical, cost-effective energy efficiency and sustainable energy solutions continue to gain market traction. Today's podcast is brought to you with support from Retrocool Energy Services. Retrocool is in the business of providing cooling-related energy conservation services to commercial, industrial, and government entities. Retrocool customers routinely realize benefits such as lower energy use, reduced peak electrical demand, extended equipment life, reduced maintenance costs, and improved indoor air quality. Retrocool Energy. So, we're your host. My name is Leo Ryan. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Galuli. Ron, that is your name, right?
That is my name. Thanks, Leo. I'm glad you remembered your name.
Yeah, it takes me a while. We've been at this for a while, Ron. We've been at this for a couple of years with these podcasts.
Yeah, we're taking it to the next level. We have a new staff member, Damian Woodard. And Damian, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on. Ron and Leo brought me on as a marketing analyst to help migrate the Energy Matters to You podcast onto a new platform. So now we have a fancy new website that I hope everybody goes and listens to. We currently have 3 episodes up on the new Podbean website. We hope to have 2 more episodes posted within the next couple of weeks. And I'm really excited to be here and learn more about the energy efficiency sector and hopefully expose more people to all the good work people are doing.
Damien, that sounded way too professional. I'm a little concerned that the people might not think this is really Energy Matters to You.
Well, it's my first section, so I really gotta prove that I know what I'm doing.
You're doing well. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Today we've got an energy veteran with us. Today we've got Adam Orszulak, who's got a new commercial venture, Pro Insulation. Adam, welcome. Welcome to Energy Matters to You.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, you and I bumped into each other years ago when you were with Next Step Living.
Correct.
And, we had a little conversation about what you did at Next Step Living, and I think it's easy to say what you didn't do. But why don't you track us through your growth and the company's growth over the time that you were there with them?
Sure. So I started with Next Step Living in 2009. I had recently moved to Boston. I owned a frame-to-finish construction company in New Hampshire previously. And as the economy was downturning, it was during the Great Recession, building in New Hampshire pretty much dried up. There wasn't any work for me up there. So I come down to Boston to try to pick up some work, and I ended up actually doing some small remodeling gigs and just was kind of over it. So I wanted to try to get into the energy sector. I wanted to become an energy auditor. I really wanted to hang up my tool belt was my goal. So I responded to a Craigslist ad for this company, Next Step Living, that was just getting started, and interviewed with one of the founding members and one of the more senior people. Ended up getting the job in the fall of 2009. Didn't really start until the fall of 2008. Didn't really start until the spring of 2009. The company had been in business for probably about 6 months or so. Had just really started conducting energy audits. I was hired to be what was called an implementation aide at the time. My job was to work with the energy auditor and do air sealing. We weren't doing audits within the Mass Save program at the time. There was a program called the Gas, I believe it was called the Gas Network or something along those lines.
Yeah. So Adam, let's do this. Because you're hanging up the tool belt there, and you respond to this Craigslist ad to a company called Next Step Living. And what did you understand that Next Step Living was going to do? What did you sign on to help them grow?
What I signed on to do was to help grow the energy audits. So at the time, they were basically doing for-cost energy audits, so actually charging customers for energy audits within Massachusetts. And it was a 2-person audit that lasted about 3 hours. There was a lot of air sealing that went along with it, and a modeling of the home to show where the customer could improve their energy efficiency.
Got it. So in 2008, 2009, you're joining Next Step Living, and they're really focused on delivering a high quality, in-depth audit focused on the residential community. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the growth of the company was really impressive. I think I recall from an earlier conversation with you that you were one of the first 10 employees in the company.
Correct. Yeah. Then when I started, there was a couple energy auditors, a couple of us implementation aides, the CEO, a marketing guy, and then a COO, and that was basically it. The company was very small. We quickly got into the Mass Save program through a program called Renew Boston, which was started with Next Step Living in the city of Boston in 2010, I believe. And the goal of that program was to get the Mass Save program out to residents within the city of Boston that hadn't normally accessed that type of program in the past.
Right.
Through the use of TARP money that Boston was receiving, and then the utility funded money, which is ratepayer money, they were able to combine that and create a really great incentive for customers within the city of Boston. So a customer wasn't just receiving an incentive or a rebate from Mass Save, they were also getting money from the city of Boston through the TARP money to improve the energy efficiency of their home. And that's how Next Step Living really took off. I mean, that was the beginning of how the company took off. And within, the winter of 2010, I moved from being an auditor and implementation aide to running our first weatherization truck. Within a year and a half, we had 30 installation trucks. So I ramped up. I went from running a truck to becoming a field manager of 5 to 10 trucks, and then ramped, through with the help of senior leadership, ramped that to having 32, I think, or 34 was the most amount of installation trucks we had working just in Massachusetts. We eventually had trucks in Connecticut and New Hampshire as well, but my role was to oversee the crews that were running within the Mass Save program and the Renew Boston program within Massachusetts, which became the largest home performance contractor in New England.
Got it. Adam, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the ramp up and the trucks, and actually because that plays right into what Pro Installation's doing. But before we get to that spot, I just wanted to bring Ron Galuli in on this, because Ron, you've tracked energy efficiency programs and incentive programs, and what Adam's pointed out here is that Next Step Living was really smart in terms of identifying the incentive money and the Renew Boston money to help drive the growth of Next Step Living in particular. I'm wondering, Ron, if you can comment on utilities' success and problems specifically around the residential energy efficiency marketplace. What things were working when you were at the National Grid, and what things were not working specifically on residential energy efficiency?
Right. With regard to residential, and I think the Next Step Living example is you had quite a few contractors participating in the residential markets. And in some cases, those individual contractors are working as subcontractors. Then you had Next Step Living come in and make a big play at, okay, let's go at this big time and develop our fleet of insulation trucks. And ultimately, it seemed to implode, as they got bigger. So it goes back to, I think, the model where they were using smaller subcontractors and having a general contractor manage those fleets. So, Adam, I'm not sure how that impacted Next Step Living and what they were doing, and ultimately what led to the demise.
Well, let's get right to that, Adam, because you ended your tenure with Next Step Living as the director of install operations. So there's 34 trucks at one point on the road, and you've got a fairly senior position here with a key part of the deliverables for Next Step Living. Can you walk us through what was Next Step doing well, and where do you think some of the gaps were that ultimately caused the company to close?
Sure. So I ended my time with Next Step Living actually helping to close the business down. My role at the end was I was in charge of. I got to kind of go around to get to okay. How it closed. We had our model for pretty much the entire existence of Next Step Living as we grew until the fall of 2015 or the summer of 2015 was a kind of horizontally integrated model where I ran operations across four different business lines. So our Windows department, our solar department, our mini split, and then our weatherization department. We had another small venture that we got into that I helped with, but that we don't even, it didn't go very far. What we decided to change in 2015 was to go vertically integrated. So I went back to running the weatherization department, and we vertically integrated our sales teams in Windows to basically have a sales team focused just on Windows, along with an operations team just focused on Windows, and an account management team focused just on Windows, as opposed to having those teams focused across multiple business lines. And the idea behind it was to foster accountability and really make sure that those business lines were functioning at the highest level they could. What led to the Next Step Living closing was the goal. One of the primary goals of the business was to create a business model that would be able to be kind of placed in multiple states that had good rebate structures and good ways for customers to access either utility rebates or government rebates to try to increase the energy efficiency of their home. So what Next Step Living was trying to do was create a plug and play model that you could put into multiple states and utility bases that would help customers move to creating their houses more energy efficient, which in turn would lower the carbon footprint of residential homes, as being one of the larger carbon emitters in the country. So it was a very much a environmentally focused business for profit. Obviously the part of the point of the business was to absolutely environmentally focus, but to also make money. And what happened was we grew so quick, the company did not make money. That's what it comes down to. It basically becomes the bottom line. Our weatherization department was profitable. Our solar division at times was profitable. But as a whole, the company was very, very, it went from 10 employees to almost 900 employees in less than 4 years. It grew very fast. A lot of money was thrown into multiple states to try to grow those customer bases. In general, getting customers to move to action with energy efficiency, it's not one of those things. It's not like remodeling your kitchen where everybody, is excited about remodeling their kitchen. Nobody's really excited about improving the insulation levels in their attic. So getting customers to move to want to do that takes time and costs money. And that's what Next Step Living struggled with, is how to create a lifestyle or a life cycle with a customer that didn't eat away at the profitability of those jobs right off the bat. And when I say the profitability of those jobs, the Mass Save program it's ratepayer funded, but it's also a fixed price structure. Companies have to be very diligent about their cost structures in order to make a profit within the program. And it's a great program, and it can absolutely be done. I think we found at Next Step Living that doing it at the scale that we were trying to do it was probably, I'm not saying impossible, because there's other companies out there that are doing it. We just didn't have the right formula.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine you could be in a better position to learn about what's required in the context of the utility space, large cities like Boston, how to interact with contractors who are delivering services, how to integrate new products. What you were able to do over your tenure at Next Step Living, you got to see all this, the things that worked and didn't work. And so here you are, Pro Insulation. How'd you guys get started, and where you headed?
So Pro Insulation has been around since 2013. It was started in Connecticut by my partner, Doug Stewart. He was a subcontractor of Next Step Living. And actually his background has been in energy efficiency. He worked for Anchor Insulation. He's been in the insulation business for a long time. He partnered with Next Step Living in Connecticut, and I believe it was right around 2013, 2014. He partnered with Next Step Living, and he was able to grow Pro Insulation to a fairly substantial insulation operation, both in Massachusetts and Connecticut. And after the collapse of Next Step Living, it did affect it affected thousands of customers, and of course, everybody at Next Step Living will regret that. That worked at Next Step Living at the time will regret that. But it also affected a lot of our contractors, and I worked closely with a lot of our contractors, and that affected me greatly in seeing how they were impacted by what happened with Next Step Living. So I'd become friends with Doug, and I'd stayed in touch with Doug. And early this spring, Doug and one of my other former employees of mine at Next Step Living were having lunch, and we were talking about how to grow business with pro insulation and within the what's called the independent installation contractor model of the Mass Save program, which is basically that you as an independent installation contractor, you're subcontracted work from the lead vendors. You don't go actually out there and create your own work like Next Step Living did as an HPC. So what I talked to or Doug about was it's very tough to grow a business when you're relying on somebody else to kind of feed you your customers. So what we've decided that we want to do is work our way into becoming a home performance contractor, and we're heading down that path now, where we're creating our own, we're bringing our own customers to the program. What we're trying to do is do it at a much smaller scale so that we can really keep a close eye on the quality of work. Two of the bigger takeaways that I had from Next Step Living was scale is incredibly hard to maintain. Working at that scale is incredibly hard to maintain a very high level of customer service and quality. Just too many crews out there, too hard to oversee. It costs way too much to have oversight and supervision in the field to watch that many crews. We have no intention of growing that large. We have our goal as a contractor is to produce very high quality work with extremely high quality customer service and give customers that feeling of what improvement in their home should really be like. There's contractors of any type of industry now get a pretty bad rap because there's a lot of people out there that are in it for the money and just want to get in and get out and don't care how they treat your house, and don't communicate the process very well and don't set expectations very well. And I want to rebuild that trust that customers should have that a contractor in their house is going to do the right thing for their house, not just the right thing for the contractor.
Right. So one of the key learnings in your experience was that the scale and the pace of growth that Next Step Living experienced was exciting, but ultimately wasn't sustainable. And that was a key reason that the company failed. You just couldn't take this high contact process of residential energy efficiency improvement and then scale it quickly enough for a large 900 person organization to make the margins they need to stay in business. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously far more complex, but there's more facets. But I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that Next Step Living grew incredibly fast, and it was not the amount of training that you need for a person to become a very good energy auditor can't happen in a 2-week period. When you're trying to push that many auditors out in the field, I mean, it takes a long time to become a good energy auditor. It takes a very long time to become a good crew lead for an insulation truck. And we were needing to have hired 10 people or 15 people a month just to cover attrition, and just that all that always impacts on the customer's experience and really the profitability of the company. You end up having a high cost of quality because in the Mass Save program, the utilities do a fantastic job of QCing work afterwards. I mean, it's one of the few programs where customers a fair amount of time can expect or can have an inspector come and take a look at the work that was done in their house and tell them if it was done right. And I think that's a fantastic part of the program. It's very hard to keep up that high quality when you're having lots of turnover and at one point we were doing 1,000 installation jobs a month. I mean, it's very tough to get the training needed to have those people running those jobs and the people going out to QC those jobs internally for Next Step Living at enough jobs where you don't have defaults in work.
Adam, you mentioned two things that I want to pull Ron Galuli in on. One is the premium on having a quality energy auditor. I know that, Ron, most of your work has been in the commercial sector, but can you just comment a little bit about how important it is, both from the side of the customers, meeting customer expectations, meeting utility expectations, and ultimately our goal here, driving down energy usage, the importance on having a quality energy auditor, and what are some of the characteristics that make an energy auditor good, either in residential or commercial settings?
Well, what we found, we're in the commercial and industrial space, and our ramp up, I work for Leidos, has been somewhat not as trajectory as Next Step Living, but we started with 2-3 years ago, and we have 9 now on our staff. And finding the right combination for an auditor, it's part science and part art, and you have to have a creative thinking mind. So it's not for everybody. You can find plenty of engineers out there that may be good at designing or doing spec type engineering, but the energy auditing, there's so many different factors, and there's also the people factor, which I think Adam alluded to. You're basically in the service industry. You need to develop credible relationships on the utility side, but also credible relationships on the customer facing side. And finding that those individuals can fit that role is challenging. And you really need to find the right people so that your business can grow. Otherwise, you're going to suffer problems like Next Step Living have with regard to credibility and service issues. Basically, it sounds like lack of communication and coordination. And we face the same things. It's so crucial for communication, coordination, collaboration, and to have the right people doing the right job.
Yeah, I think that's Ron makes a really good point. I mean, a really good energy auditor is somebody that's passionate about the environment and really is able to educate the customer on what they can do, and whether it's their home or a commercial business. What kinds of things that can really help solve issues within the home in terms of comfort and energy efficiency. But at the same time, they have to have a bit of a they have to be a teacher and a little bit of a salesman at the same time. I mean, you see a lot of one or the other. It's very tough to find people that are both, an actual advisor can really teach people about how they're losing heat or using excess electricity in their house, and then sell the person the right solutions. Because it's not, and we used to say it all the time, energy efficiency in terms of insulation and air sealing and LED lighting. I mean, that stuff that's not a very sexy home improvement. Solar, on the other hand, is like very sexy. Everybody thinks that solar is like, wow, it's solar. You can see the panels. I can understand the benefits right away. When it comes to weatherization and that facet of energy efficiency, it's not tangible. It's very tough to, you can see it in your bills and you can hopefully feel it in the comfort of your home, but it's takes a little bit of a salesmanship to be able to get customers to really move to action. The rebates help. That's absolutely a fact. The rebates help, but you have to have a good balance of being an advisor, being an educator, and then being a salesperson. And that's very tough to find.
So Adam, let's dig in on that, because Doug Stewart and Pro Insulation they've been around. They've been in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and clearly they've built a business based on the quality of their technicians. So there's good technical work. And you talked about, you spread yourself over 34 different trucks, and it becomes really difficult to provide the level of quality consistently that you think that the company needs. And then we're talking here specifically about the energy auditors, the science and the art, and the aspect of how do you take an objective like weatherization and turn it into something that has real appeal, that gets people to want to go after it and see that in their own home. So what is Pro Insulation going to do that's going to be different, that's going to help your energy auditors, that's going to help the public and your prospects and clients recognize the importance of weatherization in their own home?
So one thing that I like to look at in terms of how we want to approach an energy audit, and just to be clear, we're not doing energy audits right now. We will be, in the near future, but we're developing our processes now around that. The way that we're going to approach this situation is there's a lot of companies out there that are doing energy audits. And I think there's 14 companies in the HPC program in Mass Save right now. Some of them they do very few energy audits. Some of them do a lot of energy audits and are bigger players. What we're trying to focus on is a more comprehensive energy audit that is a more to a 2 to 3 hour audit. So our advisors will only be running 2 audits a day as opposed to many doing 3 audits a day. And what we're trying to do is not just identify what's possible for the customer in terms of what the Mass Save program offers, but Pro Insulation, we offer products that are not rebated by the Mass Save program as well. I mean, we do it's called AeroSeal duct sealing. Duct sealing is rebated by the program, but AeroSeal is a technology that's been around for 20 plus years, but it hasn't been really in the residential market. It's only been the residential market for the past 5 or 6 years. So what we want to do is for customers that have ducted systems, we obviously want to look for areas of opportunity of air sealing and insulation. That's the biggest bang for your buck you can do, because it's so heavily rebated. And for customers that, I don't know when this podcast will go out, but for the Mass Save program right now, they've actually taken the cap off the rebate program for the month of August, and now it's just the summer months. Now it's just a rebate of 75%, no matter how big your contract was. It used to be 75% up to $2,000, but for the summer they took the cap off. So there's customers that are getting $5,000 worth of work done to their house, and they're only paying less than $1,000, a little over $1,000 for it. So it's a great rebate program. But we also want to look at it as a whole home solution. We don't just want to look at air sealing and insulation and lighting and water. We also water reduction. We also want to look at ductwork and how can we improve how the ductwork's working. So if you have a high efficiency heating system hooked up to leaky ducts, that's not going to do you much good. Your high efficiency system is going to reduce its effectiveness fairly quickly. It's like putting a new heart in a body with bad blood vessels. It's just the heart's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So we're trying to treat ductwork in a way that hasn't been done before. I mean, not within the Mass Save program, not comprehensively. The Mass Save right now they rebate manual duct sealing, and manual duct sealing is great for the ductwork that you can see, but there's a lot of ductwork hidden in walls and floor cavities that you can't see. And AeroSeal gives us the opportunity of being able to seal all that ductwork through technology, not just a guy with a brush or using his hands to smear on mastic, which is basically the consistency of joint compound. So we're going to be offering things like that. We have connections with great HVAC contractors that I've built through my time at Next Step Living. So we can offer customers heating system upgrades that are different than just your normal boiler or furnace swap out. There's a lot of great ductless mini split options out there. Mitsubishi just created a mini split that it can actually fit into the cabinet of your normal furnace. So you can actually have a mini split, a mini split system that is using your existing ductwork. So that's what we're trying to do. Be very comprehensive about doing a whole home solution, and it, over time, we'd like to move more into a deep energy, as unobtrusive a deep energy retrofit application as we can get to, using the rebate programs where we're working, and also using our partners within various industries to help customers get as close to as highly energy efficient home as possible, with it being a retrofit application. I mean, you can tear down your walls and you can make your house net zero. It's going to cost you a ton of money, but there's also ways to get fairly close to that with some behavior modification and some of the newer technologies that are coming out. Be able to do that without having to pull your whole house apart in order to make the improvements.
Yeah, and this is really critical information that you're passing along, because there's so much housing stock that's already built, and so many folks are living in those homes with no intention of tearing down the walls and doing a deep energy retrofit. And so what Pro Insulation is doing here in terms of understanding what the materials are and the technologies, and then bringing a delivery model that allows homeowners to participate in the process, to evaluate the technologies, and then understand the economic benefits. There's a huge marketplace and a need out there, and that residential energy consumption is a very big part of the consumption on our electric grid. Ron, what's the breakdown, residential versus commercial, on the utility grid in the Northeast?
As far as load or customer count? So load, I believe, I'm just guessing, but I think commercial industrial might be 60 to 70% of the load. Majority of the customers are residential, however, but it's a small portion of the load. I believe that's the ratio.
Yeah, I totally put you on the spot. Next time I'll give you some heads up so you can do that research.
Yeah, thanks, Leo.
Hey, Adam, great background. What's going on with the launch for Pro Insulation? Who do you want to reach out to? How are you reaching out to folks? You did mention the cap is off on the AirSeal technology. What are some things you want to alert people to about Pro Insulation's relaunch and re-energization here?
Yeah, so I mean, our biggest thing right now is to really get involved in the HPC program in Massachusetts, and we're involved with Rise in Rise Engineering for the National Grid program in Rhode Island. Right now we're going to be focusing the majority of our efforts in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. We really want to attack the market with, obviously our bread and butter has always been weatherization. We have our insulation trucks out there running every day, working within the IIC program in Massachusetts, and we're going to continue to do that as we transition. And our real goal is to really get out there and start marketing to customers within the next month or so. Our ability to do energy audits and our AeroSeal duct sealing system, really get that out there as much as possible. And we're doing a lot of work with AeroSeal to actually market that to customers within Massachusetts. I believe there's one other weatherization company in Massachusetts doing AeroSeal. I don't remember exactly who it is, but our goal is to really, be able to serve those customers that have opportunities in their house and market out to them as much as possible. And we're doing that through a lot of partnerships. We're partnering with solar companies, we're partnering with HVAC companies, and helping them get leads through our services and vice versa.
Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to ask you, who are the people you need to get in touch with, and how do people get in touch with you? You gave us two good ones. The development of channel partners is a key aspect of your planned growth, and solar and HVAC contacts are key people there. If people want to reach Pro Insulation, who should those people be, and how can they reach you?
Yeah, any type of home improvement contractor that is interested in working with us in terms of what we can offer our customers can reach out to me directly at adam@proinsulationct.com. And for our customers, they can reach out to me exactly the same way, but even more effectively is if they're just looking for information on energy audits or insulation or AeroSeal or even how to connect with our solar partners, they can reach us at info@proinsulationct.com.
Well, that's great. Best of luck with the relaunch here. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
So thanks again for our listener for joining us. We want to take a moment here to once again thank our sponsor. Today's sponsor for this podcast is Retrocool Energy Services. In addition to energy conservation support, Retrocool provides energy engineering, electric and gas utility rebate submissions, electricity and natural gas procurement. You can visit them at retrocoolenergy.com. So Energy Matters podcast can be found on Podbean, and obviously if you listen to us, you've found us. But Ron, we always like to hear feedback. You got any good ideas for who's coming on next?
Oh, that's a good question, Leo.
I gotta give you these questions in advance.
You got, yeah. I know AWE's first meeting is in September, second Wednesday of this September. So we might approach a few of the attendees at AWE. But yeah, we'll have to regroup and think of some potential upcoming guests. Or if you are interested in becoming a guest on our show, please let us know.
That's great. Yeah, get that message out there. So recommendations for topics or companies, we'd love to hear from you, and want to help continue to promote the growth of the energy efficiency community. So for Energy Matters to You, this has been Leo Ryan and Ron Galuli. There's work to be done. Go make a difference. Thanks for listening.